following. So recording just started. So yeah, so as Sonali mentioned, my name is Anisha, and I'm a marketer and I really love animals. So we were super excited to talk to you guys. A quick introduction to the team. Dan Miller is our creative lead. So he's the visual guy, all things design, branding, how to make your brand look amazing and stand out. We go to Dan. So thank you for joining us, Dan. Aya Fisher is one of our senior marketing strategists, and she specifically focuses in wellness and marketing strategy. So she has some really great tips for us today. And Tony DiPietro is one of our lead content writers and creators, and he has a ton of experience in the New York City market and also tons of experience working with pet brands. So we're super excited to get started. So I'm going to share the screen with you guys just to kind of keep this conversation moving a little bit. So one moment, please. Okay, so Marketing 101. How can you connect with your pet-friendly community? And especially during COVID and after, what are you supposed to do, right? So we're going to start with a really key question. The main focus here, as far as marketing goes, there's so many different pieces of marketing and so many different things you can think about in general. So right now, what are the things we should focus on? First, the most effective methods that you can use to engage with your audience online. And then also, how can you maximize your resources so you can use them effectively? All right, so we're going to start the conversation with Aya. And Aya is going to talk a little bit about the marketing perspective and engaging with your community. So Aya, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Amisha. So one of the things we were thinking might be quite useful is just kind of using an example. And so in terms of the pet community, I think if you're, maybe like a dog trainer, for example, content is really king. And I think that can be a really fantastic way for setting yourself aside, making some noise within a market that is trying to get themselves online. And the biggest thing you want to do is provide ad value. People will remember that and be looking to come back to you, and that's kind of how you can build up your loyalty, your credibility, and a really strong relationship with your audience. So an example would be picking, a type of training that you could do, something super simple. It could just be teaching a dog how to sit. And kind of breaking it down into a bunch of steps, and you can take that content and really maximize the utility of it by just some simple steps. So what you could do basically is create a live session on Instagram, and you can explain some of the key steps for doing this training. During the session, you can engage the audience and encourage conversations. So encourage people to come to you and explain to you some of the issues they're facing in trying to train their dog. And you can have kind of a live Q&A, which is always really great. And then for a personalized touch, you can also ask the audience if they want to do some recordings of their own, like while they're actually training their pets, and share them with you for some feedback offline. And then in the end, you can kind of curate all of that into your own content video, which you can post later and use as part of a library in your feed that people would be able to refer back to at different points in time. So you would also be able to use that content, excuse me, you would also be able to use that content if you're looking to advertise. If you have budgets for advertising, that would be a really great little video that you can then push. So it's really about taking some of your strengths, breaking them down, and seeing creative ways that you can utilize it in a number of different facets to really maximize your reach, to help your audience and help create a community.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Aya. And just a reminder, everyone, please put your questions into the chat, like Sonali mentioned. We're actually opening up for a group discussion very shortly, so we're super excited to talk to you guys and answer any questions and talk about all the different topics you have in mind. So let's move on to Dan. From the design perspective, he's going to talk a little bit about how to really optimize your brand visually, looking at social media, and then also what can you do in your physical spaces. I know a few people have trying to figure out what to do when reopening, or maybe they have a shop that's, or a business that's partially opened already. How can you really maximize your brand through both your physical and your digital space? So Dan, go ahead.
Thanks, Misha. Yeah, depending on how pet focused your business is, you can either drive people to your Instagram if you got, a decent feed going, or your Facebook page, or however you engage with your community, but you'll be making custom posts. Now, someone brought up a point where, the restaurant's opening up, they have the outdoor seating, social distance space, but with tables, and most of them are welcoming dogs to sit outside where, of course they could never go in. Couple things they mentioned was, you can't have pictures of dogs in the restaurant, but with apps like Layouts, that's a Instagram additional app, you can kind of make grid pages where you can basically make a collage where one picture is of a dog, and then in another top square grid, you can have, the tables you have set up outside in the picture, and maybe feature the pet bowls that you have at each table, or that you can provide for each table if you're doing that. That certainly is one way, an easy, free way to get pets into your restaurant imagery without, hiring a dog actor, if that's a thing. But also, outdoor signage, most folks got like chalkboards or stuff like that, or if you're not kind of a storefront like a restaurant, or if you're like a at-home dog trainer, you still can get a chalkboard and do those witty sayings, or just your attempts at drawing a dog, and with simple steps of how to proceed and how to correct dog behavior if you're a trainer, or what you're featuring for, what your COVID precautions are, and how welcoming animals are at the restaurants and such like that. Certainly, while you're doing all this, you want to maintain, if you got branding, logo, colors, you want to keep those going throughout. So if you got a chalkboard, easy thing to do is buy chalk markers or chalk in your brand colors. So everything just kind of ties together. If you're doing a photo shoot, everything looks like it's on brand and well thought out, and tied together. What else? Certainly making sure your website is visually mobile friendly. Certainly, putting your COVID warnings on your website, but making sure people can find those things will be, user experience wise, the most important thing you can do for any of your website optimizations. Yeah, if anybody has more like particular questions about things, we can answer those in the group roundtable, but those are broad strokes and ideas that can kind of get you started or get you thinking.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Dan. So we've talked a little about marketing, design, like the visual piece. Let's talk about content. So as everyone has seen, especially at the start of March, we've always known that content is king, but at the start of COVID and when everything started closing down, content kind of became emperor, right? Like everybody's online, everyone's looking at digital. It could be a little overwhelming. So Tony's here to help you guys kind of understand what you should focus on, not focus on, and give you some content tips to help you kind of stand out in the crowd, but also dive through what you have already and see what you should use and you should not use. Tony, go ahead.
Okay, and thanks for the intro. And happy to be here. Yeah, I just want to talk about, like to reiterate what I was saying, content really is king. And so you want to just be cognizant of a few things. You want to be authentic, own your personality. You also want to be engage with your audience, maybe see what you can do to keep the conversation and dialogue going. Maybe you can set up some giveaways or promotions and encourage them to engage, and you get some user generated content that could become some of your branding, and that type of sharing goes a long way. And you also want to be reassuring, you know, in times like this, you know, let people know what precautions you're taking. Let them know you're open. A lot of people might even be confused as to whether you're open. And take a look at the competition. You know, before this session, I was just, you know, taking a look at some of the things that, you know, other brands are doing right. Like, you know, Chewy, I thought is doing some great great work on their Instagram. Also Petco and Purina. And then also, I think it's also really in a time like this, people are on hard times. You know, to you know, give back, be philanthropic, see ways. Are there things that you can do to help people? You know, ways to give back. You know, people are, you know, out of jobs. Maybe we can do some. You can do a promotion where you're giving some people pet food or treats or whatever. You know, and then they're going to maybe share that. So, you know, making sure that your content is touching on those things will, I think, you know, go a long ways to getting people to patronize you, and then just, you know, showing them how you are taking precautions in your store now that you are open. That's going to be very comforting to people. So these are some small ways that you can really get your brand out there and create some powerful content, because there's a lot of confusion out there. So I will hand it back to the rest of the team. And, you know, if you have any questions, put them in the chat and we can discuss them.
Awesome. Thank you, Tony. So I'm going to come in with a few marketing tips as well. So we've talked a bit about content and design and really having the right communications and making sure everyone knows what you're about, but also what you're able to do at this time. So I wanted to touch on a couple of things. Let's talk about partnerships a little bit and how to maximize your time. So right now we have so many things going on. What do we want to focus on? And I feel like as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, like you're trying to maximize every opportunity you have right now, but still be sensitive. And so partnerships is an interesting one to look at, both with helping the community, you know, helping your local dog shelter, helping the frontline workers, and you're giving back, whether it's through product or donating masks and all of the great things we can do right now. Another thing you could do as far as partnerships goes is maybe partnering up with another pet related brand to put together like a customized package. For example, let's say it's for, I read in the news recently how a lot of people have their pets are kind of left not taken care of. For the people affected by COVID, some pets, if they're sick and their owners can't take care of them. So what do? So community organizations are stepping in and rescuing these pets, right? But as a brand owner, maybe there's something you can do to help them as well. So maybe partnering up with a local dog treat company, and then perhaps looking at maybe some pet wear, maybe some sort of pet shoes if there's an older dog, or maybe a dog that has like sensitivity to walking in the heat, just kind of things like that. I feel like right now there's so many different ways you can partner, but it's also about making sure you're giving back. The partnership can last through COVID and beyond, right? Because we always want to think about the future. And also just looking at what's available in your area. There's a lot of local businesses that do some really great stuff, especially in New York City, across the country. But I know we're mainly based in New York City, so we have like firsthand experience with all the really great pet-friendly businesses and restaurants and companies, and they're doing some really great things. So, you know, partnering up with them to see what you can offer to your community, I think is really important and helpful right now. And another thing is right now, you're trying to figure out what you want to do with your marketing. It's actually a really great time to test things out and see what you can do differently, and maybe, you know, test out a social media campaign, test out partnering on an event, or testing out how you can give back to your community. Using Aya's dog training example and really putting together some customized content online. And as Tony mentioned, being really authentic and looking at what you can give away, maybe you could do like, you know, a promotional box or something, and providing the tools that you'd advise your clients to take, to use to train your dog, and then have, partner with the company that makes the products, and have a little bit of your information in the box, send it to your clients, and then they join in for like a session with you online, talking about how they can, you know, teach your dog to sit, or do the high five, or maybe go fetch, like maybe some simple things, or depending on the level of the dog, even more. So there's a lot of different things you can do right now. I think it's important don't be nervous about testing things out and seeing how it goes. This is actually a really great time to see what people like and don't like, or what they respond to. And especially with so many people watching digital way more than ever, every channel you can think of, from TikTok to Instagram to Facebook, we're all on there. This is a great time to see what your audience likes, and take that to the physical space too, if and when you can. So it's a couple of ideas I have. I'd like to now open this up. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and open this up to everyone attending. We've talked about a couple of different areas, and we've kept it pretty high level for you guys to kind of guide the conversation a little bit, but we really love to take any questions, whether it's about your business or it's about a general part of marketing, design, content, whatever, and make this into a group roundtable and see where we can help you. So do we have, let's see, let's take a look at what we have here. All right, guys. All right, perfect. Jolenta, thank you for your questions. So Jolenta is asking, what's the biggest marketing challenge we've seen pet businesses face? And also, what are some opportunities pet businesses have following COVID-19? All right. I have a couple of opinions on this one, but let me open it up to the team to see what you guys think. Let's look at the first question. The marketing challenges we're seeing pet businesses facing right now. Oh, well, in general, excuse me. Anybody have any thoughts to start with?
I don't know. I would say, I think some people initially had confusion about how their pets might be impacted by COVID. And, you know, especially when there were some reports how in the Bronx Zoo, some animals came down with it. I think it was like tiger. And then, so, you know, I think people were concerned about, you know, could they get it from their pets? Could their pets get it? So, you know, dispelling those things and, you know, informing people. I saw some brands were engaging with doctors on this. I think, you know, maybe doing an interview with a veterinarian about this. That could be something engaging for your social media channels. You know, maybe clearing up the confusion. You know, what things you might want to do to help your pet in times like this. I know pets are confined more, and they pick up on anxiety too. And you know, what can you do to alleviate those things? Getting you know, some professional advice could go a long way to comforting people, I think.
Okay, I think it's a really, you brought up some really good points there. Aya, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, that early stuff, it certainly crippled like the dog walking business, because people, you know, still are hesitant or afraid to let you know, a dog walker come in and, you know, take their dog out. But you know, if you're a dog walker per se, you know, show people that, you know, you're following safety procedures with your masks, or you know, brand your mask, put a little paw on your COVID mask. I mean, something as simple as cute and something like that sometimes, you know, can be an endearing thing, and, you know, warm people back up to you know, taking the risk, so to say, of, you know, letting them at least take your dog back out and give you a break finally. That could be one thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I'll jump in here. I think it's a couple of things pet businesses face. Overall, like, our pets are like basically like our children, right? We do everything for them. But I think in a time of COVID, it's some of the extra perks can I say, that we might do for our pets, those businesses may not, like, for example, we may not necessarily get, you know, some extra fun t-shirts for our dog. I've done a few of those. I have a little Yorkie, and during COVID, I'm not thinking about that. So it really depends on your pet business. Is it something, would you consider a necessity, or is it something that's, you know, just for fun? So I think businesses that have something, dog food, medication, CBD oil, right? Like if your dog or cat really needs that, that's a necessity. But getting like some a cute new leash collar, not exactly a necessity. So it kind of depends. That some of the challenges I think we face in general, but in a great, you know, a normal economy, we're not worried about that. In COVID, it's more about, hey, what do we really need to make our dogs safe, healthy? I think from the perspective of veterinary care, that's been really interesting because if you have a pet that is older, for example, and needs to get see the vet more often, but maybe you're in a climate where your vet's not open, it's all telemedicine. That's totally different when it comes to pet care, right? So that type of business, it's really about pivoting and making sure you can help. If you're a veterinary practice or like a vet therapist, it all depends. So I think it's kind of like how everyone else, all the other businesses have responded. As a pet focused business, what do you have that's most important to your customers right now? And then opening back up to a more open economy, I guess you can call it, post COVID sort of, because who knows when it's going away. How can you bring those products and services back in? I think it's really seeing what people can't live without, in short, I think.
I would just add to that one other thing, which is I think in the pet industry, a lot of it is kind of allowing for customers to come to you. And I think that what we see is there's a real opportunity of sort of switching the focus and seeing how you can go to them and how you can make their lives easier. And that's just really, you know, taking a little bit of time to kind of assess some of the trends, which I think now we've been in this for a couple of months. We have a much better idea of how people are spending their time when they're working from home, and, you know, what families are doing. They're able to go to parks, but perhaps certain days during the week, you know, everybody's kind of hunkered down in their house. And it's actually, I saw a question about someone who's saying they're a dog walker, and, you know, business has been a bit down. But what I find really interesting about that is, for example, like my friends that have pets, they find it challenging because it's quite distracting to have the dog around and having to take it for walks during the day. And so they actually find it really helpful if that can just kind of be taken care of. And so I think that be also mindful that the trends are always shifting. And so the way things may have been 2 months ago, it may be a bit different now. And so I think just reaching out constantly, engaging in a conversation with your customers and seeing where their head's at, you might be really surprised about some of the things that they need versus what they needed, you know, 2 months ago. It may have shifted already, and you can easily adapt and pivot.
Okay.
Yeah, for the dog walking thing, a promotion would be, you know, let's say you got a conference call scheduled. Well, schedule a dog walk during, you know, have your dog walk, or your promotion to be, you know, schedule a walk while you're on, you know, a company-wide conference call, and it's one less thing. But that could be one promotion a dog walking company could get out there.
That's a great suggestion, Dan. You can almost even make that a piece of content where it's like, you know, a series of tips like how to cope during COVID, and, you know, scheduling your dog walk during a meeting is brilliant. If I can share my screen, I can also show you some examples I found of other brands to just give you a little flavor of what is out there. Oh, it looks like I can't share. Oh, okay. Let's see. Yeah. Open. Are you able to see or no?
Not yet.
Okay. Looks like I'm having some issues with that. Oh, here we go. Is that working now?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, these are some things I just found that I thought were just good examples of, you know, some content that other brands were doing. Petco, you know, letting people know that they're open,
Mm-hmm.
you know, Chewy, doing some things about, you know, sharing social distancing in a fun way, or letting them know what they're doing, offering essentials. You know, this is kind of
Mm-hmm.
like how you're giving back. You know, doing these Q&A sessions. I mean, that's a really great thing where it's engaging, training pets, you know, teaching them new things, keeping them safe. You know, like these tips of the weeks, you know, could be great. Um, Having some professionals come in, like this doctor was brought in by
Mm-hmm.
Petco to talk about, you know, the possibilities of contracting COVID, or just even having some fun things. This, you know, like stay at home, just trying to be part of the effort out there. You know, reminding people, stocking up. Don't forget your pet. Get prepared with, you
Yeah.
know, and just letting them know that you're open with curbside pickup. Maybe people are leery of going inside because we're telling people that that's where it's dangerous. But if you're offering curbside pickup, you know, Petco is doing something about just, you know, love is staying
Mm-hmm.
6 feet apart and engaging with people. So yeah, those were just some examples that I saw that were nice to get the creative juices flowing of what's possible.
Yeah. I think thank you, Tony. Those are really great. I think it's interesting how they also tie in very much to what a lot of brands are doing during COVID, like being really authentic. How can we help you? And being really assuring and saying, hey, we're here to support you, and using different services they can offer to do that. I think it's interesting how it translates so much to your pets as well. And also kind of looking at your pets' well-being holistically, right? Are they well fed? Are they well exercised? Are they getting a little separation anxiety because you're home all the time? They're not usually home. And how can you help distract them? So I think there's some really interesting ways you can help pet owners and help your pet friendly customers deal right now, for sure. So we had another question I think is really interesting I wanted to bring up. It's about brand consistency, and specifically tone and vision through communication. And I think it touches on so many different things. But definitely, I mean, talking about messaging, design, marketing campaigns, like Tony shared a couple of examples that people are using on social. How can you make sure that your tone and vision are like consistent through all of your marketing channels? Anyone want to jump in first?
I mean,
Yeah,
what we
I
do.
would like to.
Oh, go for
Sorry,
it.
Dan.
No, go for it. Go for it.
Yeah, so I think this may or may not already be the case for you, but I think something that's really useful is to make sure that you actually have everything written down. So if you have a document where you've already laid out the tone of voice, you've already laid out kind of the vision and the mission and all of these things, then you already have a reference point that you can constantly kind of go back and check against. And then the second thing I would suggest is that it's also really helpful to do a content calendar. So you can actually create a matrix with all your different platforms and just kind of, it doesn't have to be super refined, but even if you're just able to put the kind of visual you want to use and what the topic is, some keywords, you'd really easily, once it's laid out in front of you in one space, be able to assess whether it's on brand or not. And if you're unsure, then you just go back to your document that you've created and kind of do another sort of cross-reference. So it might seem really like kind of like a duh answer, but actually having it written down in front of you makes a really big difference.
That's a great point.
Definitely agree. Yeah. Dan, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I mean, what she said was what I was going to say. But yeah, we put together a brand book for new clients. And you don't think about it, but what's the font that you use in your logo? Like if you don't know what the name of it is, tracking that down, and then using that font or a complementary font, we call them, that can be used on your Instagram posts. And then you just use those two fonts for all your branding. And then again, if your logo has certain colors, using those as backgrounds behind the text. Like if the image is too heavy and just white or black text isn't very readable, you'd put a solid color behind it just to make it pop a little more. And there's that free app out there, Canva, which has been helping a lot of people put text over images. Or if you want to spend, I mean, a Photoshop subscription nowadays is pretty cheap. Just Photoshop is only like $5 or $10 a month, but you know, gives you a lot more options for making collages or a little fancier effects. But certainly look at Canva and those layout, any free apps. There's a few out there that can help you make your brand consistent.
Very cool. Tony, anything you want to add?
In regards to what?
In this conversation, like from a content perspective, really keeping the brand tone consistent, like communication wise, anything, like any tips, tricks?
It's definitely important to have a consistent voice and personality. I mean, if you can channel that, and being, you know, being authentic is key. You know, it's people will, you know, detect if you know, you're going astray from that. So you want to have a consistent voice, almost like a character in the movie. It's like, I always try to think of a brand like that. Like, who are you? What's your character? What's your personality? If you were cast in a movie or a play or something like that, and staying true to it. You know, that's a good way of testing whether you're on brand or not. And, you know, and these days, you know, this day and age, in the time we're in with COVID, it allows you some room and flexibility to do things. Not everything has to be so polished and refined. I mean, everybody knows that that big budget shoots are not happening. So it actually gives you an excuse to really try to leverage what you can do with, you know, things just shot on your iPhone or video that way. It seems more authentic and engaging. You know, it's not as staged. So that this is a time to really, like, you were saying, take some chances, put yourself out there, you know, and hone your brand voice, and you can really make yourself shine.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. I think since it's a great time to kind of test things out, my perspective is one of the things we do with our clients from the very, very beginning, whenever we first start a project, is we map out a customer journey. All that is where should your customer start? Like, let's say they're going to start clicking on something on your website, and then where do you want them to go? So it's a really simple thing. It's literally saying step 1, you do this, step 2, you do this, step 3, etc. But without having that mapped out, you can easily miss how to best market to your customer per step, right? So right now, I think you want to keep your brand tone and your brand tone and voice consistent, both visually, through your campaigns and through your content, but you can also change what you do. So having that customer journey mapped out and how that works for maybe something new that you're trying, I think is really important. And then, like Dan mentioned, having like a little brand guide, having your voice written out, having your visual, like literally like what colors are your logos and your brand colors, like just having them written out somewhere so then you can apply it in a way that makes sense, I think is really important. But there's so many different things you can do, like keeping the tone and tone consistent is really important, but test out how you reach out to your customers, test out, you know, maybe reaching them a different way. Maybe, for example, if you don't always DM your new customers, right? Maybe on Instagram, try doing that, see how it goes. And then keep the same way you talk, speak to them through your posts, speak to them the same way on an instant message or a direct message. We had a really great question, a follow-up question to this, guys, and I'm sure we all have a few answers. What are some tools we can share, and tools and apps that we've seen help in brand consistency and kind of helping our attendees formulate a brand cheat sheet? I know we've all used a ton. So Dan, why don't we start with you? Because I know you've mentioned a couple already. Like from the visual perspective, what are some things in addition to like Canva and Photoshop that you would suggest to kind of put this together?
There's one called GIMP, is also another free graphic software. So all these have small learning curves. It sure sounds like Canva seems to be, I mean, it's skyrocketing in popularity, but the free version really makes it easy for overlaying text and you know, making slides like for presentations that you just saw earlier. I can certainly make a more comprehensive list. You know, being what I do, it's all Adobe, you know, Photoshop or InDesign for print materials. So I'll put together more of a list for other things like that. Trying to think what else, but yeah, I'll put a list together that we can shoot along with the recording of this to everybody.
All right, great. I have a lot of them, but from
Yeah.
I have a million. I use a lot of apps. My phone is like a mini computer. They're from cheat sheet wise, like having things ready to go. I mean, as simple as a Google Sheet, really just adding the information into a Google Doc, dropping it in there, and then typically I always have it available on my phone or I screenshot it. For social media, in addition to Canva, which Canva is really great, if you want like a quick way to put text over an image, Word Swag and Story Swag are great. They both have Word Swag as a free, Story Swag has a free and paid version, but those are cool because videos get more engagement, but not everyone has time to go out and shoot a video every time they want to make a piece of content, right? So just adding in a little bit with what you have is really easy, and you get more views, the more engaging, and that works really well. And then another one that I like to use to kind of help with keeping things consistent, kind of, and it's connected to what Aya was mentioning, is writing everything out. I use Planoly a lot. That's a great one for Instagram, and you can really plan, pun intended, what you want to put down. But they also have an app that's connected to them called Stories Edit. So that makes you really just think about what your story layout should look like, tying in what Dan was mentioning about brand colors and just really simple templates. But they have some pre-made ones for you. That's another free and paid version app. But the nice thing is it ties into Planoly, which lets you schedule them, which is great. So it just, you know, taking your maybe Sunday or a day that you're not as busy, which it's kind of crazy to find right now, but planning that out, really thinking about it. And after you've figured out your themes and what you want to talk about, plugging that in and creating posts from it. Those are some of the tools we use a lot.
Yeah,
Oh, go ahead, Tony. Go ahead.
One thing I would add is it's real important to kind of use the tools that you have. If you have an Instagram account, using Instagram analytics to try to figure out the best time of day to post to your followers. They have stuff on there. There's also apps like Later that can tell you the best times of day to post. But like looking at when your followers are on there, and that way you can hone in on actually not just like what we were talking about, creating a content calendar, so you can maybe post a relevant piece of content on, say, like the 4th of July or National Dog Day, but maybe what is the exact time of day, you know, really refining that so you're optimizing your reach. There's a lot of great data analytics information out there. So, you know, taking advantage of that will go a long way to, you know, engaging with people and expanding your reach.
Definitely. I totally agree, Tony. Planoly has that too. The apps you mentioned are really great. And also an interesting thing is the times are changing right now. Like if any of you already use apps like this, like you might see how different the times are now, and like kind of weird times of day. You're like, wait a minute, people are looking at my stuff at 6 p.m., 7 p.m. That's different. So that's actually probably, along with creating your content, really looking at before you start putting stuff out, when should you be scheduling it? Aya, how about you?
Well, I was kind of going the route when I was thinking about the question, just in terms of, I don't know if it's like a one-person show or there's more than one people that are kind of contributing. And usually I'm sure there probably is more than one person, in which case even like a project management tool is really helpful. So I know sometimes when I collaborate with others and we do want to have a consistent tone, like we're all posting the same thing, for example, and we want it to be, you know, with the right tone and the right look and feel, we'll use a management tool, something like Asana, which is really helpful because everybody can kind of log in there, make edits, and sort of have a collaborative effort to whatever the outcome is going to be. And then if you're working in an organization where someone is a brand owner, they'd easily be able to come and just give it like a once over and make sure that it is aligned as well. So it's really helpful if you do have other people you can work with on it, to not just rely on your own eyes, but another set of eyes is always really useful to just kind of sense check.
Definitely. I have some tools to add to that too. We use Asana quite a bit, which it's really great. Another great tool is Airtable. Airtable is kind of like a collaborative Excel, but it's easier to use. They come in with templates, but we've used that one quite a bit, both to like collaborate internally, and then also it's something you can also share with your clients. So it might be something where we're putting together a whole content strategy, editorial calendar, and all of that good stuff, and we want the client to check it out and approve or not approve, or say, hey, I really like this post, or hey, can you change this a little bit? Airtable is a really good one. And then also, if you're not super into, like, you're into project management, but you haven't tried some of the bigger platforms, Notion.io is actually a really good one I found out about recently. It's free, and that's it's just a really easy one to use, and it's also great to share with anyone on your team, or if something that that you just want to try it yourself, that's a really good one. All right. Any other questions, guys, that you have? And we're also open if you want to mention a little more about your business or any specific challenge you're seeing right now or considering for the future. We're happy to discuss that a bit, if you guys like. Actually, I think I see one from Prodigy Puppy. We touched on it a little bit. It's about dog walking. It's a dog walking company, and they're getting just hard to get clients to basically, it sounds like, to come back on board. I have a quick question for you about that. Do you mean clients to basically sign back on while they're working from home because they have more time to walk their dogs, or just kind of getting them to sign back? Like, yeah, kind of, if you want to unmute yourself and kind of explain a little bit what you mean, we'd be happy to answer that question. Are you there?
Hi, this is Prodigy Puppy.
Hey there. So yeah, what do you mean exactly with your question?
We had a pretty full schedule before the COVID hit, and a lot of our clients either went away and haven't come back, or they are here and are working from home. And I'm sure a lot of them don't feel the need to spend the money if they're home, but there are a few that we do have that are working and still having this come, but not every day. So it's like a weird transition where we're trying to get everyone to just slowly resume their usual schedules and come back to working with us. And we have an Instagram. It has a decent following and we post regularly, but I didn't know if there was any more clever posts that maybe we could use or methods to reach out to potentially even new clients that weren't.
If you want to create some content, I would just off the top of my head, I mean, I think Dan made a really good point about, scheduling dog walkers during meetings. I mean, you could create a piece of content. I mean, everybody's been familiar with being in these Zoom meetings where, the meeting's interrupted by a loud barking dog or a cat ambushing, the presentation. I mean, creating some fun kind of content like that, and, starting off with maybe snippets of a person's meeting getting disrupted by dogs and whatever. And it's like, maybe like following it up with like, is it time to, start scheduling more dog walking? I mean, it could be a great reminder of like, yeah, I should be thinking about this stuff, just to, strike a human chord and connect with something that's happening out there, and tapping into that could really, go a long way to, generating more calls and leads for you.
Yeah, just like I got a few dogs in my house, but that one that pops up often. So certainly would be something, once in a while when I got a big call or something, I could see being interested in that. So that could definitely be one idea.
I think an interesting strategy might be, and it was, I can't take all the credit for where it came from because I listened to a call a few weeks ago where they addressed this, but dogs get anxious too, pets get anxious too, right? And they get so used to you being at home, but maybe you're not giving them all your attention because you're on a Zoom call or you're working, right? I think a lot of us are working even more than we used to in a regular environment. So I think having the dog get acclimated back to being out more often, like having a walk instead of having maybe like twice a day, or have it maybe 3 times a day. And then also talking about how, and I haven't checked out your Instagram yet, but talking about how you guys are like taking all the precautions, social distancing, being really careful, and that you're making sure everyone's safe and the dogs are protected. I think that could help because I have an older dog and I have a puppy, and the puppy, I take him out for a walk and he goes nuts every time he sees people, bikes, lawnmowers, like you name it. So I kind of wish, like, man, maybe he needs to go out for more walks with someone other than me to get him used to being around more people. So maybe that's a perspective that you could use.
Yeah, one other thing I might just add is that maybe considering offering an incentive for people to use you more frequently, like a rewards program, similar to like a lot of restaurants do it, buy 9 burritos and your 10th one's free, like maybe to encourage them, maybe you have some sort of rewards card where like take 9 walks and your 10th one's free, to get people, it sort of gamifies it, makes them want to go. It's like everybody loves getting something for free. And so drumming up that repeat business could be a nice way, to get people in the habit of using you more.
Nice. Okay, guys, any other questions or any thoughts? You're welcome, Prodigy Puppy. Any other things you're kind of seeing, challenges you're facing? And maybe one big one could be, what do you do when you reopen, right? Like, of course, it makes sense to say, okay, great, we're back in business, let's open everything up. But is anyone facing kind of challenges saying, okay, what should we open back up? What shouldn't we? Do we feel safe opening up our boutique right now? I know some places are in phase 3, some are in phase 2. It depending if you have like a pet cafe or if you have maybe like a mainly e-commerce business. If anyone has any questions around that, we're definitely happy to dive in to what that could look like. Okay, great. We've got a question. Newsletters. How often do you suggest businesses send one? Aya, do you want to jump in on this one? Your thoughts?
It's a bit hard to just kind of say off the cuff without some previous information in terms of how your current audience is engaging. I've seen newsletters that go out once a week that are actually really great. They get high engagement because there's always really relevant content. I've seen newsletters that go out once a month and that are also, just as effective. So it's a bit kind of a trial and error. And what I would suggest is keep in consideration the type of content that your audience likes, which you should have some of that feedback from your social accounts, for example. And just see how high the engagement is, see the types of feedback you're getting. Is it mostly just likes, for example, or are people commenting? I think the more engaged they are, the more likely they are to open a newsletter and really look into what you have to communicate about. And, test it. Try sending, once a week for a month and see how many clicks you get and what kind of feedback you get, and then try kind of spacing out a little bit further and see if that helps.
I have an idea for that as well. Like when it comes to newsletters, if like just I mentioned, you have to really look at how they're engaging. What's your business like? What are you saying in your newsletters? But also like you have to keep not just the content fresh, but the look and feel fresh. I'm sure Dan has a lot more to say than me on this, but how can you make sure that people are not just getting used to seeing your newsletter structure a certain way? We've seen like different clients where they have the same exact structure, and it's great to keep brand and visual consistency so people kind of know what they're going to expect, but with the number of emails we're all getting right now, might be good to change it up a little bit, still keeping it consistent. Dan, what do you think?
Yeah, that the giant increase in more emails coming through everybody's inbox. Lots of people are just passing over things. So, creating a different tagline for a few emails a week isn't bad. So it just doesn't, it's like, oh, we're still doing this, but something funny, something catchy. But then for the visuals, just repeating the subject of the email with a different color, different typography or something in the header.
I've actually seen, Dan, some newsletters that have emojis in the subject. And I find that
I've been
quite
seeing those.
attention-getting. I don't know how you feel about that, but.
I mean, they do the job. They're effective. So I don't know which clients across the board can do that. I mean, if somebody's got some old dinky Outlook, 2011, they're not going to see those things, and they'll see some errors in their subject line. But since most of us have, email on our phones or more modern stuff, most people do get those. And yeah, there's plenty of dog and cat and emojis to throw in there, but I'd have to just find the code for those. And there's a couple different things. I can do that and post, answers a little later, but because there might be different codes for Gmail or for Outlook or Apple Mail. There's, email consistency is a little nuts as a developer, so I can certainly just flesh out what will work and what won't, but I certainly have been seeing those a whole lot.
I also think it's good, doing newsletters with something engaging in it besides static. I mean, I did a lot of work for Wonderman, and they really thrive on CRM, and we would always focus on trying to make things engaging, maybe incorporating GIF into it, that has motion. It's still a low file size, and it has that animation, especially if you're talking about pets here, dogs and cats. A lot of great GIFs out there that are fun, draws your eye into it. I mean, it's like, pictures are worth 1,000 words, but a GIF, I mean, is probably worth 1,000,000 words, because it's memorable, it's fun. You're going to want to scroll down and really pay attention to trying to make that newsletter as engaging as possible. And I've seen some brands even taking a step further, where they really curate their newsletter, and they've been telling people, share our newsletter with your friends, and if you get some other people to sign up, we'll give you this gift package with like stickers and other things. So like getting people to sign up, think about that, like how you can really expand the reach of your newsletter by getting people who are subscribing to you to recommend your friends as well.
Very cool. Awesome, guys. Thank you. So we can definitely talk about this a lot more. Jolanta, I see your question about the newsletter examples. We're running a little short on time, but I'm definitely happy to follow up with you individually about that and see what kind of suggestions we can give you for that one. I'm going to turn it back over to Sonali for the final comments.
Great. Thank you so much, guys. Dan, Aya, Tony, and Amisha. This was so great. I was definitely taking some notes. And I hope it was helpful for everyone else who joined the call as well. I think my biggest takeaway is don't be afraid to experiment. Things have been changing so rapidly. And I know as business owners, sometimes we really worry about, rocking the boat because we have a certain newsletter list and we have a certain audience, and we're afraid to do too many different things because we're afraid, and we worry about how will people react. But this was really encouraging, and I'm feeling very optimistic about testing out some new ideas for Pet Minded. And I hope so did everyone else. We will send out a follow-up email shortly with information on how you can schedule a free 30-minute consultation with this team so you can get all your questions answered. And I will also make sure that we get a link to the recording and send that out too, so you guys can rewatch this. But in closing, thank you so much again, guys, for showing up, and to the panel for sharing your knowledge. Really appreciate this, and your contribution to, you know, hopefully this community will emerge stronger after COVID and will continue to serve pet parents everywhere. So thanks again, and see you all soon. Bye.
Thank you guys. Have a great day.
Thank
Bye.
you.